We're going to wait just a few more minutes for one member who hasn't gotten here yet. Thank you.
You guys like to get a copy of that of the menu?
Yes, you gave me one. Good.
Yeah. Or did you get a copy of this?
Yeah.
Mhm. Cause I've got like 4 or 5 extra copies in this.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and begin the March 6th meeting of the Somerville Tree Protection Board. The first item of business is discussion and approval of last meeting's notes and minutes.
Move to approve is submitted. I'll second it.
All those in favor? Opposed, say nay. Minutes approved. First order of business is old business, 604 West Carolina. The owner is not here, and I didn't think he would be. But we re-examined a tree that he had the patience to more exposed for us to look at, like codominant elm. That's what it used to look like the first time we saw it. Did you have a picture of the second time, Nick? Well, anyhow, once the Asiatic jasmine was removed, it was a lot easier to see that there were serious concerns with the tree. Any other question or discussion about the tree?
Yeah. With the vines going, you could definitely see hollows in the tree, and it's not healthy at all. Yeah.
I agree, and motion to approve removal.
I'll
Second.
second it.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is 458 Waring Street.
Morning.
And here we're talking about 2 pine trees and 2 oaks, one of which I recall is dead already. Is that right?
I think it's tree 4 is the closest one to the house. That is. Yeah.
That's really dead.
Yes, that will grow, I think. Yeah.
All right. We all saw the site. Anybody have suggestions? Reminiscences?
With the oak closest to the house, I think certainly warrants removal. It was dead or so nearly dead.
Right.
And so very close to the house. Can I see the pictures of the pine?
Well, there was one pine that was very close to the driveway and the driveway was fractured. And there was another large pine directly behind the house that also had a wind shear potential, a line wind potential for damage. And then there was an oak that was right behind the first pine tree,
Right.
which I felt really didn't warrant removal. However, I felt that the other 3 trees did. But please go on with observations if you all have.
Was the oak tree number 3? I think.
2.
2.
Okay.
You're looking
Yeah,
right
that's
at it.
Water oak.
This
Yeah.
picture right here.
And the only thing with the oak tree is, so one of the main reasons to get the the first pine beyond the driveway getting damaged is we want to fence the yard. And that's the only place I can put a gate for a truck to be able to get into the backyard is the other side's too narrow. So that oak tree would be right in the middle essentially of where I needed to put the gate to be able to have somebody have access to the backyard.
Oh, I didn't remember hearing that. As you had said it, I didn't remember that.
We do not have a lot of space on the other side of the house.
I thought we were looking at a tree.
Yeah, those two
It
trees.
was in your lot, but
Yeah.
no, with somebody else's. Wow.
Yeah.
A bit of a variance there, maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Prior to us, yes.
Oh, yeah, you know, you didn't build a house. huh?
Yeah.
And now this is a 16-inch oak we're talking about here, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay, and okay, and you found that tree to be diseased and hazardous, right?
No, that was four, the one that leans over the roof.
Okay,
That's right here.
It does have a pretty, it's got a pretty obvious codominant leader.
okay, I see.
Two is just a code on, but otherwise.
We've got a fair amount of trees in the yard. We're happy to, we're planning on put some trees across the back of the property a little farther away from the house. It's a half an acre, so there's definitely room there to do it. I gotta be able to get in the backyard with the trail.
But y'all do have plans to place other trees in the backyard?
Yeah, there's a lot of leaves on the ground, but when you rake up the leaves, there's actually a fair amount of saplings that have just kind of grown over the years. So we want to move those into a better spot where they'll.
Spaced out where it makes sense, so you not grow,
Okay,
will grow healthy near each other, but not fighting each other for the light.
right.
And certainly like knowing that we only have half acre, well, it seems like a lot, willing to make donations to the Somerville town or parks, whatever it is.
Okay.
Want to be doing, taking away from, we want to be adding to ultimately.
We just bought the house about.
Yeah, well, I remember that. Well, there isn't a direct way to assist monetarily. That we had a tree fund for residential, but it was discontinued. Hopefully it'll be renewed in the future. I don't know about go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at this photo and trying to project into the future. If the pine tree is removed, the one closest to the driveway, and permits more sunlight to impact the oak, it's going to grow. It's going to induce growth, and that codominant leader probably is going to become exaggerated more. You'll get more tip length at the end. So it would take, I mean, it's certainly remedial pruning would affect it, but it's going to take major remedial pruning. And I don't know that you really help that tree in the long term that much. I just don't know that you do. I wanted to offer that as an observation.
I didn't recall the rest of the lot. I don't, are we approaching a mitigation question with number of trees or inches per acre here?
Don't know the exact count. I think we have 35-ish other trees on the property.
Oh, really? I must have been looking up all.
You're in the front too. There's a bunch across.
That's right. That's right.
frontage
Yeah.
area. Yep.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion that we permit removal of trees 1, 2, and 3 with the agreement that the arborist will determine that there is no mitigation required for the removal of the oak tree. The pine trees we've decided are hazardous, and mitigation would mean we would require you to plant a or a number of trees, but you already seem to be willing to do that. And I feel comfortable that the situation is as you say, but just to be on the safe side. So that's my motion. Shall I repeat it?
And 4 is okay. 4 is the dead one. That was
Oh, my God, yeah.
given. Okay. Gotcha.
I already forgot about that after we left your house. We had
Yeah,
forgotten
that was,
about that.
that was very, very unhealthy.
It confused me for a moment too. I was trying to backtrack the numbers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
If there's none, all opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
No, I'll reach out.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Next order of business. 315 South Gum. No one is here. This was a tree with a lot of discussion. 49-inch sycamore. Let's get started.
That was actually West Fifth North Street.
Yeah.
712.
Yeah,
Yeah, West Fifth North Street.
yeah, that's the parking lot.
Yes, 712 West Fifth.
Oh,
Good morning.
I'm sorry.
We apologize.
The owner had to be out tomorrow and the owner has.
All right, so this is removal of 7 trees, mostly mostly longleaf pine, am I correct? Longleaf pine, okay. Okay, have to change gears. I was already thinking about the other. Discussion.
Well, I think, after we looked at the lot and the parking, potential parking areas, we felt like maybe y'all could move the parking to allow all the trees to remain. Maybe look at, pervious, pavement for the parking. But we just didn't feel like any of the trees warranted being removed. I think there was one bad pine in there, but for the rest of the trees, it looked like they were all in good shape. If you
Healthy.
just reconfigured the parking.
One concern would be the cedar tree right there beside the pump.
Right.
That's where the handicap parking would have to be, and that's the paved concrete can be impervious.
Okay.
So that one we would have. The magnolia tree on the right side of the property is already interfering with sewer lines. They already have to dig up and replace the sewer lines. So there's already some roof encroachment there. We have, talked with Elliot Locklear about doing site cleaning. He's going to be doing your site cleaning for us. Again, he's looked at the plot. He agreed with our initial request for Elliot, but again, we haven't really tried to reconfigure or bring on those trees. We just put one configuration. And it would require removing those trees.
Well, it looked like from when we went over the requirement for 5 parking places. And we found ample room, we felt, whether it be pervious or impervious, to put them closer to, I forget what the side street was, and angled in a different way. So that you could accommodate all 5 cars without removing any of the large grand trees. I didn't know anything about the magnolia, the fact that it had encroached on the sewer, that is an issue. But I was not aware of that.
Number 7, the magnolia, the roots are in the crawl space and approaching the sewer system.
Okay.
And number 6, the cedar is also, the roots are in the foundation, but that's also where the handicap. If you'll call up the map again, there's one that's right in the middle, that's a very tall pine that's leaning toward the house. I don't remember what the number is. I believe it's number 3. There's one of them that's a very tall pine. You have the photos, Nick? And
I don't.
It was either 5 or 3. I think,
Or it might have been 2. 2 did have that pitch canker on it, but we know.
right, 2 was the one that we felt had an issue. But,
if we could get those 3, I think we could make it work.
When you say
You could-
those three, you're talking the magnolia, cedar and the,
Pine that's leaning, and I'm not sure which one on the diagram is, it's very tall pine that leans over toward the house.
We've got a picture of, this. Is that the pine they're talking about? It's not leaning.
oh.
You don't have the pictures today?
Like he's got a.
Yeah, and there was a
This one
picture of the
over here?
layout of the parking lot. I thought it would have been in this package here, but
I think that's number 5.
Did we have that table there where I did said I said see the magnolia thing? Yeah. That's
So the
embarrassing.
pine you're talking about, if you came out the front door, is it to the right or to the left or the one in the middle?
It's a light-
Okay.
It's a tall one. I can't get my orientation from there. I think it's that one, the one on the left. Yeah, I need to rework that one on the left.
Okay.
With as much space as you have there, you could come in on either the entrances on either of the roads and have 5 places to park
Yeah.
either way.
We're not allowed to, do egress from 78, so it would have to be on Birch Street. So, yeah, it would be tight right there with those 2 small trees, but I'm sure Elliot could do something. But the one that is leaning, there is some concern about if it fell.
I'm thinking based on this photograph, that tree 2 is the largest one just this side of the driveway. I think 1 is a pine tree over to the far right,
Right.
and then 2, and then 3. I think the one leaning maybe is 5,
Yeah, it looks like it would be.
and tree 2 was the one that had a pitch tank on it. You really can't see it in the photo.
Yeah,
I think that limb's kind of covering it up.
on the other side of the street. Had a pretty nice-
It had what?
So it had a spot, a anchor spot.
So the trees you're asking for would be 6, 7, and 3? Or is that 5?
I think she's asking for 6, 7, and 5.
6, 7, and 5?
And 6 is,
6 is a cedar,
Right.
okay,
7's
7's a
magnolia.
magnolia.
7 is a magnolia. Okay. As I recall, the tree number 5 was, I don't recall leaning. I recall the proximity. But I would sort of wish I could look at it again. I don't recall a lean. Did anyone else feel comfortable that a tree was leaning?
Well, it looked so in the photo. I
Well,
mean,
but it's leaning not toward the house, but the other way.
Yeah, it's leaning away from the house and I can't tell that if there's any soil disruption, it appears. Well. Yeah, I was looking to see if it was growing straight out of the ground and then leaning because of sunlight. But it does seem to have a little bit of a lean out of the ground.
Okay, so 5, 6, and 7 is your lower level request, may I put it that way, and your minimal request at this point, because there's a lot of room out there to accommodate some cars. Go ahead, Denny.
I'm sorry, I have a question about the magnolia. How far is the magnolia tree itself from the sewer line?
I don't know if that picture doesn't show that side of the house is where the bathrooms are.
Yeah.
Back of this, and so the sewer line is right there at that side of the house. It is maybe 2 feet from the truck you see there is maybe 2 to 3 feet from the sewer line.
The tree that was approved by the previous office was for the same reason, it was right behind that.
Yes.
I think that was also. for sewage.
So
But that's a new house relatively, isn't it?
Is the house new?
Yeah.
It's just been resided and everything, I guess.
We just purchased the house in August. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Dated.
It looked, and sort of young, if I will, and I was just wondering if it were, then sewer line shouldn't have been put quite so close to a large tree, but maybe that's not the case.
Seventies, I believe.
Okay, okay. I
When-
stand
when-
corrected.
When did y'all have repairs done to the sewer line?
Honor had the sewer line tore up when they bought the house, so I don't think the sewer's been reconnected. We had a plumber look at it and say, this is what needs to be done, but the sewer was disconnected and it's the odor. We're not using it. We're not using that bathroom right now. It's just
Okay,
not much.
but the line does need to be repaired somewhere near that tree.
Yes, the front line, the line from the bathroom at the front right side of the house. Yes.
One of the reasons I'm concerned about the proximity of the sewer line to the magnolia tree is generally speaking, tree roots are not going to disrupt a pipe unless there's water leaking from it to start with. The roots will grow and they'll find the water and then they just explode, sort of, they grow big there. So but that's why I asked how close it is. If it's 2 to 3 feet, then maybe the buttress part of the roots is big enough that it might move a sewer line. But generally speaking, tree roots are not going to break a sewer line unless there's a leak there to start with.
But Danny, I'm thinking if the house is 70 years old, that sewer line may be that old Orangeburg clay
Orangeburg
pipe
pipe, yeah.
that had a lot of issues with the trees. Just in other words, it's not PVC.
Right. And so,
The old clay pipe.
right. And so the problem is with the sewer line, not the roots. I mean, it's a chicken or egg, but at any rate.
Could we delay a decision on the Magnolia then until we discover where the sewer line is and what kind of pipe it is?
I don't know that I'd want to do that. Anybody else have a thought?
Yeah, if it's, whether it's Orangeburg pipe or PVC, if it's the tree's fault, then it's the tree's fault. If it's a leak in the pipe, it's a leak in the pipe. So I don't know if it matters what kind of pipe it is. Maybe it does.
The contractors are saying the tree has to be removed for them to be even able to fix the sewer line.
To repair it or put in a new line?
I do not know. I just know that was, the plumber said he recommended that tree be removed.
Right.
I think it was to replace the line and to move it further.
Right. With all due respect to the plumbing craft, because it's an incredible craft that we all use and need. They're not tree experts, and I've never known a plumber, and I say this good naturedly, but truthfully, I've never known a plumber that didn't want to take out a tree when there was a line next to it. That's the case. So I have a problem with that rationale.
But we just don't have enough information to make a clear decision. Like where the line is, what kind of pipe, and like he was saying, that they just won't get that tree out of the way.
I can't answer that.
Right.
No.
Well,
I
we
realize
can't
that.
I'm not a plumber either.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
How would we best determine that all these questions be answered?
well,
Have to hire someone to dig up the pipe?
I would suggest that we could deny removal of the magnolia. And then the burden is on the owner to prove that it is indeed the tree's problem. If indeed it is a problem, the farmer may look at it again and say, oh, you know what? I can divert this this way. I've just seen that happen too many times. So I would say we could at least deny the magnolia. And I hate the fact that there's no other place to put the handicap parking, which is necessary, because that's a good looking cedar tree. But I know that.
Was there not another option for the handicap parking?
No, the porch goes down. We have to have a ramp that goes down, and the ramp has to be think the porch is 3 feet, so the ramp has to be, what is it, 36?
Wide, yeah.
So the ramp has to go all the way to the end of the house, and it's right there where that tree is.
Okay.
Handicap.
Nick,
Could there be a bend in the, I've seen ramps that have, you know,
I mean, I don't know how to, without.
so it's coming straight at that magnolia tree, I mean, at that cedar
Cedar.
tree, is that right?
Bend it out front, and you're eating into front area parking
Right.
space.
Nick, there was a drawing we were looking at on site that showed the layout of the 5 parking spaces and all. Do you know where that is?
I don't have it.
Okay,
These
And-
ramps could be L-shaped to accommodate a tree so that you could work together. And a lot of people like planting parking under a tree because it gives them shade, because we live in the South and it gets hot. And the shade can give you a little bit of a break.
If you do that L shape, then you're running into pine trees 2 and 3.
Well, we've discussed removing tree number 2 because it has a pitch canker of merit in the top. Tree number 3 is less substantial than any of the rest of them in the view. What does anybody think about that as an alternative? To save the cedar and make an L-shaped ramp that we've already are inclined to think of tree number 2 as being a candidate for removal.
Okay. I think that's a great idea.
I do too. I like that.
Can you live with that?
Yeah, that's what I said. I think that would work. We'd have to get Elliot to look at that handicap parking space again. I think if we extended it out past the tree. Or did the L shape, came in and did the L shape, but I think we can make that work.
Can I see that diagram again, Nick? The one right above, yes, that one.
Yeah, I think if we leave 6, if we leave the cedar, the handicap would have to be at the front and between 3 are. Because there's other trees and roots there along the side that are not.
Okay.
You're on the property line, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm comfortable with that, but we still haven't decided definitively about the magnolia. Could I'm inclined to approve moving 2 and 3 to save the cedar. And I'm getting the feeling that everyone would like a little bit more satisfaction at the sewer line, its repair, its whatever is requiring of that magnolia to be removed, which would mean we could approve 2 and then have pending the magnolia, a description by the plumber, a more detailed one about exactly why. I think that would make everyone here more comfortable. I don't like that you can't use the bathroom.
But there's another bathroom at the back that is usable, but that bathroom right now, that's right. at the front
Right,
of
I
the
understand.
house.
You can, you're not.
Yeah.
Now,
now,
I mean, we've been trying
that
some
sounds like
projects
2
with
sewer
this
lines coming into the house.
it sounds like,
So we will do what we need to do to make it work.
Right, I mean, it's certainly possible if if the plumber digs near to expose the sewer line. And you see that there's one offensive root that has worked its way into the sewer line or has disrupted it. That root could be removed and alleviates the problem, and the tree lives another 25, 30 years. So that, I would like to see that option explored, to see if between root removal and plumbing repair, if the tree can be saved. And then if not, then the applicant can certainly come back and reapply.
Do you know exactly, maybe I missed it, do you know exactly why the plumbing doesn't work to the bathroom? The sewer line is inoperable?
Because that section of the line has been disconnected because the tree intruded into that section of the sewer and blocked it. And so the plumber, when he was trying to see what the problem was,
So he dug it up.
let that section up. Yeah,
Well, he dug it up. Why did it break in the first place?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But so do you know where he dug in relation to this photograph here? Or how close to the tree was it?
It's right there where that muddy spot is.
Yeah.
And there was another tree removed for that job.
We saw
That was Bill.
right.
Bill.
Yeah, the big chunks are still there. Big oak. Well, I'd like to make a motion to permit trees 2 and 3 to be removed for the purpose of the handicap ramp and to place pending the decision on the Magnolia with more information from the plumber, which
We can't
Second.
see what's underground and don't know when when it was dug up previously. And it's hard to make a judgment call on things that you can't see and don't have information on.
I understand. And you know, we're kind of in the same boat. We hire professionals and rely on what they say. And that's
right, that-
Yeah.
the information. I
Yeah.
I
provide.
understand.
So 2 and 3 removed and pending on the Magnolia.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion passes. Thank you for your patience and
Thank you.
so the next order of business is the 49-inch sycamore at 315 South Gum. This is another long discussion with nobody here to listen, the owner that is. But I think there was sort of a consensus, everyone looking at it and not wanting to take the whole tree down for the sake of a codominant that was having some difficulty. So let's hear some suggestions about dealing with that and going forward to save the tree.
It seems like we talked about also just to continue to monitor the tree, see how it leaves out this spring. If we start to see some more declining issues with the canopy, maybe revisit and propose removal of the tree. I think there were some branches up in the tree that also needed to be cut back to some greenwood, that type thing. But overall, I thought we were just going to have the owner monitor the tree.
Definitely that, to monitor after the leaf flush. But additionally, a certified arborist should get into the tree and determine if there is a decay column that is in the upper part of the tree, or if there's enough decay to make it structurally unsound. Because the arborist who visited did not get in the tree. He just stood on the ground and said, I think this is the case, and did not do a class 2 inspection, a
Right.
detailed inspection. So to wait for the leaf flush and see what sort of shape the crown is in, if there is dieback, and secondly, to do a structural analysis of the tree to see if it has any structural defects.
And sycamores, we just don't have that many sycamores around. They don't do as well as they do wood upstate. So to have a sycamore that looks that good is worth, I think, some thoughts toward preservation.
David?
We could definitely determine that there was some decay in the tree. We just couldn't tell the extent of it and really talk about monitoring the tree, getting an arborist maybe to come look at and give a
Right.
recommendation. I
He
would
was-
say the decay in a sycamore is probably not as detrimental as like a water oak
Mhm.
or something like that,
Hadn't go right to the ground
Yeah.
necessarily, right?
but we just could not make that determination.
The arborist was standing on the ground and so were we.
Could I have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we deny the approval to remove with a recommendation to the owner that he monitor the tree after its leaf flush, and if he still thinks he wants to have it removed, that he have an arborist do a structural analysis of the tree.
I second that.
Any more discussion?
Good.
You didn't add which is probably imperative, and it's your own idea, is to cut back to that, how they are, if they're gonna go in the tree,
Right,
to cut back that dead area to
Right.
determine the distance of the,
correct.
of the rod.
That it removed the remaining portion of the trunk that was broken off to good positive wood,
Okay,
green wood.
I don't know who's writing the. Remy's taking the notes probably, but, huh? He was, yes, correct. Anyhow, to include that in the motion that not only get to go up there and assess, but actually cut that rotting portion of the codominant down to the first major branching, and to
wood.
find out if the rot continues to go down. The motion passes. Do have any more discussion? No?
I'll
All those
second
in
it.
favor? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have 414 Factors Walk. We've had a lot of discussion about this tree. And it tears at both sides of the reason we look at trees for the potential for removal. It is truly a grand tree. It's growing like crazy, pine tree. It's what's the DBH on that?
32, I think is what I read.
31.
31? Yeah, 31.
It's very close to the house. The shadow of the 10-foot rule keeps coming back, even though it's not officially in print except for new construction. But it is always relevant, depending on what the tree roots are doing. But I'll let some of the others please have your input on this. This is a tough one because it's such a magnificent tree. It's an A tree. We don't get many A trees.
No, it's a tough one. It's within 5 feet of the house.
Wow.
And prior to the UDO being it's within 10 feet, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. It would all been automatically approved. We don't see any damage to the house. The homeowner did bring up the 10-foot rule. I don't know whether y'all heard that. or
Oh,
not.
I did. That's why I
did.
mentioned it.
That subdivision was developed around 1990, so 32 years old, that tree's probably twice the diameter it was when the house was built. And I would say it almost has to be roots under the house, although we can't see anything. It is a healthy, vigorous growing tree, so it's going to continue to grow. It really doesn't have any competition.
But they
It's
could
kind of
do
out there by
some,
itself.
they could do some root pruning
And
that spot that's
yeah,
right
and-
at the house.
And Gehagen is one of those neighborhoods where they didn't go in and clear cut everything. They built houses around the trees.
And that tree is
And-
straight as an arrow.
And personally, I just kind of feel like the tree, to use Peter's quote, has kind of grown itself in a bad situation.
Yeah.
And like I say, it is 5 feet from the house.
The main assertion that he was making for removal, however, was the principal one was that it was leaning, and he was watching it over the last 6 years of his ownership of the house. It was leaning sequentially every year, and he was worried that it was going to fall over and hit his neighbor. And consequently may, depending on the root system, if it fell that way, pull up his foundation at the corner of the house. So Danny has a suggestion.
Yeah, I've had to deal, when I was working, had to deal with situations similar to this several times. And it's always a tough issue. What we noticed as a group was that when a tree begins to dislodge itself or the roots lose their elasticity and it's prone to falling, that the side that is away from the lean tends to raise up, and the side of the lean remains constant. But this is constant all the way around. So I didn't see anything to make me think that the soil was being dislodged and the roots were losing their hold. Is one thing, but what I've done in the past, or I've seen done in the past, to determine whether or not a tree is actually moving and leaning is to measure it. And so if you find a spot on a fixed unmovable object like the house and level over just with a level on a 2x4, and that's all it takes, level over to the tree and put a spot on the tree. So you've got a spot on the house and a spot on the tree, and take a measurement between the two. And then if you're consistent and measure at the same two spots every time, you can check it daily, monthly, weekly, or every 6 months to see if the tree is leaning, because it will show. And if it is leaning, then you've made your case. The tree is shifting, and we need to remove it. The likelihood that tree is going to completely let go of its roots, today or anytime soon are pretty slim. So that's what I would recommend to the owner, that they do that. And additionally, if they choose, part of his rationale was that, well, the tree is leaning, and if it falls, it's going to endanger my neighbor, but it's also going to, if it's a complete, wind throw, that as it falls and the root plate comes up, it could raise the corner of my house or raise my house. So then if he really is concerned about that, he could have a commercial arborist, a certified arborist, air spade to see where the roots are under the house. And if they are up close to the foundation so that they could cause foundation problems, then they could either be root pruned or we could grant removal of the tree. Then I would have concern about doing too much root pruning on that side of the tree if indeed it does have a lean. But at any rate, so I would suggest that we deny removal at this time, pending a study to see if the tree is leaning and if the owner chooses where the roots are in his house, but at least to do the study to see if the tree is leaning.
I'd second that.
It wasn't being made as a motion, but
Oh, I thought it was.
no.
It was long-winded enough to be
Yeah.
one.
It sounded
for that.
good.
Need to edit it for Remy's sake.
Right. I will.
Thought anything?
I think what Danny's recommending there, I think that's a great idea. Just having professional arborists get in there and kind of check out, first of all, if there's a lean, any uplifting of the roots, and to check out the roots going towards the house and see if there's an issue, any disturbance there on the foundation of the house.
And all these things do not preclude removal at some point, because I'm not worried that this thing's gonna come falling down in the next month or so. We're out of hurricane season, fortunately, and so this is not totally preclude that, but it does give time to evaluate. Whether the owner is sympathetic to this or not, we have no idea because he's not here. So the results of this decision will fall upon you to have to inform the owner, unless we can do it in a more diplomatic fashion or more easy fashion. I don't know what it would be. But that's what would have to be done. We would like him to know that this wasn't an arbitrary, no, can't take it down. It is a reasonable evaluation of the situation. So you want to simplify your motion? And
I will, yeah. So I move that we deny approval for removal of this tree, and recommend to the owner that he devise a method to measure from the house to the tree, the distance between the house and the tree, and study it over the course of 6 months to a year to see if the tree moves. And if it does, then we can revisit and perhaps approve removal. Further, I would suggest that he have a certified arborist remove the soil to see the extent of the roots underneath the house and if they have the potential for damage.
By air spading. Well, removal is, that sounds scary in print.
Okay, I'll say air spading. It could be done. that way.
Okay, sorry.
I second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
It is, looks like it's as straight as it could possibly be, and it's been there obviously a long time. Got there before the house did, and has stood strong through storms that we have had. So that's a credit to the root system that exists, that is hanging in there, holding on.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
I,
All opposed. Motion passes.
On that one. All right.
So next in order is 220 Smythe Drive, and the owners are not here either. It was a pleasant visit, and we spent a good amount of time evaluating one pine tree and an oak tree, another case of a tree really close to the house. I didn't spend a lot of time with the pine tree. I was spending time digging out the roots on the oak tree. Anybody want to discuss the pine tree? I know that you checked it out with a hammer pretty effectively.
Yeah, it had a strange sound with the mallet, but I didn't detect any decay.
Okay.
And was this was not requested for removal anyway, was it? This was just an observation.
I think that was one they'd applied for,
Did it? Okay, I
Yeah,
apologize.
that pine
Okay.
and the live oak.
Yeah, I didn't determine any.
I didn't either.
Okay, then there was the oak tree, live oak tree. Pretty healthy.
Yeah, I think the live oak, I think it's in good shape. Again, it seemed like we just told the owner to monitor if there was ever any disturbance to the foundation of the house, to that porch area there. That was my recollection.
And there was one root that came directly off the tree under the porch. It was recently repaired, the porch was, and when we were digging out there, you remember they actually curved the baseboard to accommodate the curvature of the root, because it was very tight fit, so in time, that may be an issue. It was recommended that cutting that root alone would not substantially threaten the tree's health, because it was in fine, healthy shape. The another question that the owner had was he was concerned about branches falling on the roof. There were no candidate branches, dead branches, which are the ones in the past that had damaged the roof in the tree at this point, and we recommended that he occasionally have it pruned when that branches died. And he was comfortable with our discussion, and that was the extent of it. Do I have a motion? Any more discussion? Danny? No?
No, I concur with what you said, but completely. That there may be no need to root prune that tree at all, but if in the future they feel the need, the removal of that one root that we saw would probably not be detrimental to the live oak at all.
I'll move that we deny removal of the oak tree and the pine tree and recommend periodic examination of the state of the oak tree with respect to challenging to the foundation and occasional pruning of the crown.
Second.
There's a second?
Second.
Oh, okay.
And knowing full well that if things change, they could reapply and get in touch again, and that would be fine. We certainly agree with that.
Yes. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have 1708 Charlie Road. One more where the owner is not here. There was a question about, Becca, tree numbers for an assigned lot on this one. This is the doctor's office. Well, we can talk about the trees. There was a smaller hickory in an island. There was a very large live oak that was having difficulty, had a lot of apical death going on certain branches. And then there was a big water oak that was just hollow as it could be at the corner. And discussion. What?
Yeah, I think on the one on the corner, I'm not sure if we determined it to be a water oak or just what, but that one, I think,
Oh, willow oak. excuse
yeah,
me.
there you go, willow.
Okay.
I feel like that one should probably, in my opinion, go ahead and be removed just because of all the structural issues there. I know there's a little bit of parking in that area and also people driving through the parking area. The hickory, I think you need to leave the hickory, let it remain, maybe do a little bit of pruning on it. I think it should be okay. And then, what's the other tree number?
It's probably number 2, the live
Probably
oak.
two.
Yeah, the live oak. Again, it's all, to me, it's almost like it's outlived its life. I don't know what it's done over the years as far as declining or anything like that. But, I think we talked about maybe removing those larger trees and replanting with some, younger trees to kind of rejuvenate that parking area tree wise. So those 2 larger trees, I think they should be up for consideration for removal with the idea that they would replant something else there in the place. The rest of the committee may have some other ideas on that.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The laurel oak, water oak in the corner, it's certainly structurally unsound and ought to come down. The live oak, you could do some things to it to sort of keep it standing there, but it's not sequestering any carbon. It's not offering much shade. It's it's habitat for some wildlife. So it's perhaps only contribution, that and holding soil, only contribution to the environment. So it's probably better off, we would be better off environmentally to remove that. And if mitigation allows to have the applicant mitigate for both of those trees. And I agree about the hickory. I'd love to see the hickory stay for a while and see what they can do with it.
And their mitigation I don't think would be reasonable to occur where the live oak would be removed. There's not a lot of space there and you'd have a heck of a grubbing job to do to restore that site. But where the water oak is, there's room adjacent to it for another tree, as well as right the side on the Charlie Road side of the parking lot, in front of some crepe myrtles, and a place for another canopy tree to be planted, so that the 2 could be replaced if we can reasonably require that or ask it. And that's why I asked about the tree numbers on the lot, Becca.
Peter, the only thing with that is if you look where the parking lot angles and then you got that power line out on Trolley Road, I don't know how much room is going to be,
I don't
where in
either.
future years.
I
the
don't
trees
either. I didn't
Wouldn't
take
be
that into
butchered.
consideration.
It wouldn't be butchered back.
Oh, I see what you're
You know,
saying, yeah.
don't know. Might have to go look at that, but, or Nick look at it, but
Yeah, if particularly to be, and you would communicate in the case of litigation anyhow, correct? With the landowner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, that was a good catch, David. And also I think that it's possible that you could replant in the island where the live oak was. You might not get it right in the exact same spot, but if an old tree like that, if it were ground down, you know, the root system could be ground down to a couple of feet, then you've got room to put a tree in there. But there's also room on the sides, I think, to put
Well,
trees in.
there is,
So
I just know what live oaks leave because I have.
Right.
My property, I had.
well, I understand,
but they leave. I mean, leaves.
No, man.
but I would,
Petrified wood.
I think you could.
Well, in any event.
Right. So-
Uh, Anybody else?
And I don't think we're
Recommend,
talking like any kind of inch for inch mitigation. I mean, if you
No,
replant something
no.
there, an inch or 2 inch caliper tree is gonna grow faster than a 3 inch.
I agree. No, and again, we're finding defects in these trees, which is not by itself requiring a mitigation unless it's overseen by the ordinance in terms of tree numbers or inches per acre, and that's why I asked that. So.
I was going to recommend canopy trees as opposed to, somebody mentioned crepe myrtles a while ago.
No, I said they were near crepe myrtle.
Oh, okay. I
I did not
missed.
recommending crepe myrtle.
Okay, I didn't think you did, but I wasn't sure.
Now
But thank you
are.
for, thank you for clearing that up.
I'll make a motion that we approve removal of trees 2 and 3, the live oak and the willow oak. And strongly recommend mitigation for them where appropriate to be determined by the town arborist.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. And it's almost 10 o'clock, and that's what I said it would be. I
You're
thought it was
good.
gonna be much later.
You're good.
This is 19 Legree Lane Drive.
Street, drive, lane, we've heard all sorts of things, we gotta figure that out, what it actually is. But
Okay. I have much of us probably have a lot to say. I'll just start and say that I'm very uncomfortable with the number of trees, grand trees that have to be removed for the house plan. After thinking about it, looking at it again, there's just a number of them that I just feel the need to see if it is possible to have a redesign to accommodate some more of the grand trees that seem to have to be removed.
I agree with your discomfort, sir.
Any other, please?
Yeah, no, I agree. I would hope that, that the building design and driveway design and everything connected with it could be altered or tweaked to accommodate for leaving more of the grand trees. It's just, that's such a lot like that is just such an integral part of Somerville, of the community, and I would hate to remove all of those trees that are suggested for such a large house. It troubles me that we would need to do that. And so I'd request that the builder or the owner look to see if they can't make it smaller or change the design in an effort to save more of the grand trees.
David?
$11,000. Already. Sitting virtually no good. Don't know if we can get relief on some of the setbacks and try to fix some stuff.
Have you tried?
I have not, because I wasn't sure what was coming out of this. To see what.
Becca, can you help us with this in any way?
the property owners were to explore, requesting a variance to do some setbacks, that would be something that could go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. They would just have to, with Tim actually to, address the requirements that that board would need to see for the request, but in the interest of the tree, one of, being the main reason. That's a good argument for setbacks. I'm not really familiar with where the other houses around this property are, like what their setbacks are. I'm assuming many of them are probably not conforming because this is a weird lot. But that would be my suggestion. If the design of the house can't be changed, or I mean, in reality, it can be changed, but obviously a lot of money is invested, so that's just another option that they could explore is requesting a variance for setbacks and maybe redesign layout of the lot.
And I would like to state the obvious. We are a tree protection board. And obviously those beautiful live oaks and other mature trees, that's what we want to do, is protect as much as we can.
The zoning board meeting. The Board of Zoning Appeals meets the second Tuesday of every month. The next available meeting is in April. It is a quasi judicial board and it does require a public hearing. And the state requires certain public notice requirements. So unfortunately, I've already posted for the March meeting, which happens to be next week. So really, I mean, you could make an argument that there is a hardship and that this is a unique shaped spot. And it's a unique situation with the trees being what they are. I missed the beginning, but that being said, you can make an argument that there is a hardship and there's a possibility that the board would approve a variance to the side or rear setbacks to make this a feasible plan. But it is up to the board. And I can't promise that the board will approve a variance for this layout for those reasons. So we'll put that up. And if the neighbors come out and object to variances, it's unlikely, but again, it is a public hearing and there is that possibility. So it's a situation where it is still subject to review and it must meet the 4 criteria that the state has established for a variance. It isn't just, hey, I have this plan and this is what I'd really like to get done. Can I get a variance? It's not how it works. Where is the best place to find that criteria? It's in the ordinance, chapter 13 goes over that, but if you'd like, we can discuss it further after the meeting. What trees would be allowed to come down from the site?
Would be under what circumstance? I don't mean to be facetious, but what would be are the ones who we would prefer to come down as opposed not. I would rather think it from in the other direction. I think of 2 large trees sitting in the, I don't know how many car garage it is. There's the very large pine tree in the back right-hand corner. If we're looking at the same.
The one oak that's at where the garage is, has that big old.
Okay, one of 'em, but-
cavity. And it, I mean, it's gonna come over the house no matter what, by the time you prune that thing up.
No, there was another one behind it, a live oak behind it. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I know it's a, correct me if I'm wrong, a laurel oak, Nick,
I believe it's over Laurel.
both of them, okay. Then there's a large pine tree in the corner. And I didn't walk and look at every tree that was on. This was a difficult site for us because differentiation wasn't currently available for which trees were to be saved and which trees, more importantly, were requested to be removed with, tape, with single color tape around it. So that made it difficult. I'm surprised that Natural Directions went through this, that they didn't do that. But maybe they didn't even get that far. Maybe they were only to do a survey. I don't know how that
Yeah,
works.
That's why we had corners and everything with the house staked out, so we could see what was inside versus
Right.
outside and how close some of it could come. Instead of just trying to flag certain ones because you don't know how it sits or put it in perspective.
There were some grand trees that were challenged by, and I must say also that the giant garage for a giant motorhome, getting back to the spirit of the lot and its belonging in Somerville, seemed a bit on the edge. I just have to say that it didn't compromise a lot of trees. Some of the ones that it did for the gravel driveway reaching into it were ones that once we had the discussion for a good long time about the power line underground, that is a superb outcome we hope happens. Because for two things, it gets them underground, it gets Owen Street Company from not going through there. When Dominion decides that live oak that we talk about a lot, it's leaning over right over the right of way. There wouldn't be any reason even to save that if those were kept to be above ground lines, because one of these days they're coming and I know the 8 feet up, 10 feet out, 10 feet up, 8 feet out, I forget which, there'd be nothing left, because of the way it leans. So that tree was also, we argued all about how we could maybe save that tree, and you were concerned about the 3 giant pine trees right behind them toward the interior of the lot that was the garage. Or no, that was the corner of the house or the proximity to the foundation. I mean, that just seemed to take out all but a few. The one big oak, a lot of accommodation was made for to the right of the motorhome garage. And of course, we appreciate that. And you had all the right things planned to do, to protect it with air spading and mulching and whatever else it took. So those are the ones that come to mind for me, but I didn't even spend a lot of time in the back of the yard. So I'm gonna see if others have stuff to add to this. Taking too much time. Danny?
Well, no, I don't have much more to add. I think you've covered it. It was difficult to envision it was difficult to envision what trees were going to be jeopardized by the construction. And it just seemed it just seemed that the structure was so large, or the project was so large that it was just overpowering this sort of quintessential site. And I just would like for it to be rethought, and if it can't be done, then fine. But I just think that for the sake of the community and for the sake of what's good about the community, that it's worth sharpening pencils and sharpening eyes and looking to see how many more trees can be saved.
David?
Yeah, we were there. It was very confusing. I was there for an hour and a half, I guess, something like that. And the whole time I thought there was 2 pines towards the back of the lot that they were going. And it wasn't until after we looked and discussed that I realized they were staying. Everything was flagged with fluorescent pink flagging, so it was no distinction between removal or remaining trees.
And I think if I remember correctly, you guys had talked about maybe having Natural Directions come out and do inventory thereof on as far as health. Savability of the trees on the site.
Yeah, that would be helpful to have them do an arborist report on the viability of every tree that they're talking about.
I think it was also, excuse me, mentioned that, the grading plan, how much of that was gonna have to, take place. You didn't really have a good feel for that. I don't know if it's something that was gonna be minimal or not. But, I think we need to have a better understanding on what kind of grading is gonna be involved. And also, did you have any luck getting with Dominion as far as going underground? This is-
That's the grading, so it all flows.
To that back corner? Or,
I'm trying, it's all rolling this way now.
okay,
Naturally, it's coming up this way and then going that way from all the topo shots, so that's how the water is gonna already move. And so we're not planning on altering.
not doing any kind of,
Whatever required to move it around the house, let it go the natural
okay,
direction is, because otherwise we're gonna be.
so wouldn't have any effect on any of the trees.
No
No,
fill,
sir.
what you're saying, that's except redirecting from base of the house.
Redirect from base to house, that's the way it's already going, so that was the plan to leave it and not make any major alterations.
Okay.
But that was, that's the.
Yeah.
That's okay. That was-
Could you leave one with us?
Another one.
And I think you were gonna try to touch base with Dominion as far as trying to put some of this underground. Did you have any luck with that?
Just lay it over it,
We could go
Okay.
around with it.
which is the beauty of what you can do.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, it comes at. We have to pay to run, get it underground. Which I think is fine or doable from the owner standpoint. To make it so it's all underground, but it's. I guess it helps save a lot of trees, but. Kind of that point of everything just keeps going up and up, if they start redesigning the house and. Start making those changes that they're gonna, it's ultimately for them that they wanna. Do how they wanna,
Okay,
I guess where that cost comes in with everything. Try not to have to spend another $10,000 getting the house redesigned and then.
Well, I understand that, but first, back to the Dominion. So they're gonna charge you exorbitantly for,
Basically, it's up to
We
the
get-
owners to find somebody to dig the conduit. Dominion won't dig it themselves.
but is that, do you have, I mean, you're a builder, you know how much, what that kind of cost is.
I don't, because normally with all of our stuff, Dominion comes, runs it already for us and does it. We've never had to drop a major power line
Mhm.
down. So it's finding those companies that do that, and I haven't tried to put that out there. I've just got the information on that, so I figured out who we can reach out to, what companies to do that. But, that's something that I'm trying to work on right now, so like I said, what utilities are down there, obviously, if there's anything under there, affect the cost of that as well. Another thing too, I was just mentioning for board consideration is, some sort of letter of recommendation from natural direction as far as the tree protection, how the tree protection. So almost all of them, I think, are over a third encroachment into the tree protection zone. That's something that.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Because it was hard to see that, but. Yeah, well, that's. Pretty much automatic, isn't it? That, no, I'll, do we need to put that in the way of a motion? Well, do that.
Yeah, it's something typically if I do a site without you guys, like, that's for a letter from the arborist on how it's used. Yeah, and I've already talked with Nash Correction, once we got to that step, they were like, what we need to do, how to do it, treatments, all that stuff. Yeah, I do remember the three of problems. We were just waiting
see which trees we're gonna be talking about.
And that's where they want to know what they're talking about.
Right, I understand.
To figure out.
Well, this is tough for both of us. I realize that.
I think it's also important to note, and I don't know if you've looked at this part of the ordinance, but the tree protection that they're showing on the site plan doesn't meet our requirements of what Nick is saying. So that's something important for the board to have as well, I understand that logistics need to happen to figure out what trees you're actually going to be addressing. But I think if and when this is brought back before the board. It would be good to have.
So
Yeah,
it's-
it's so much unknown that's why we're just showing it, and then we're gonna default back to natural directions once we know what the plan is, to let them tell us how to do it, where to do it, and everything. And anywhere that's closed, we already talked about air spading and everything before we ever touched any equipment on there, to make sure we're in the good for the whole save the trees and all of that. But again, when I met with them, they need to know what direction we're going to be, and I think that's the thing we're finding out is y'all are asking this, try to make a decision, everybody keeps wanting somebody else to make a decision, and that's where it's hard to bring that information up or have it, because they want to know what trees we're saving or what this, and then, so it's kind of just everybody going around in a circle with wanting to know what everybody else is gonna do.
Did Natural Directions have any concerns about tree protection? Did they mention that at all?
I mean, I met with, Donnie Skinner on site and about it, and he wasn't concerned. He's like, I can, especially the big boat, go closer to the detached garage. He's like, he said he was fine with that and could work with what we needed to do and expand some the other way and just do some mulch and some treatments and everything. Like that, he wasn't concerned with any of it, of what we were saving. In his mind, he wasn't. Because we talked about limbing some stuff up, doing some pruning of the tree to help it pull nutrients for the better part of the redoing it, and not go into those areas that we can get pruned off to help just clean up the canopy. Because we were there for about 2.5 hours walking, looking at everything, coming up with the 90-minute game plan.
in some ways, the hour and a half that we spent there was maybe premature.
I don't feel it in my eyes. I mean, I know we have to get it, and like I said, that's why we staked the house out with the corners. So everybody could see where it was sitting, what would be in, how close it was. And
That's-
so,
And that's good.
and that was part of it, to see, but. I mean, it's knowing what trees were taken down is gonna set up everything else that follows behind it, the tree protection, everything else. Is what we need to, I guess, to know and find out.
Were there any, were there any particular trees that concerned you? That were candidates to be removed? Besides the ones I've already mentioned? Again, tough question since they weren't flagged so that we could see them instantly. Nobody?
But actually, most of the oaks that were over, say, 18, 20-inch DBH that I saw to stay really didn't look all that healthy trees. And I was concerned about the 18-inch pine tree on the northeast corner of where the house sits.
Oh, yeah, they got a big one
Yeah.
back there, yeah.
And like I say, there was a few back here in the back. The whole time I thought they were gonna go.
Right,
but
no,
they
but
stay.
that's a big one in the corner, yeah. That's a sort of an anchoring of the lot, and I talked to you about that one and about the porch, and you said you couldn't move the porch. might still want to ask if we wouldn't mind figuring a way to move the porch.
And generally, looking at this list of trees to maybe be saved and those to not, there were the ones that are supposed to suggested protection are the ones that we had more D ratings on those than those that were to be removed. And the same thing with this A grading of A. Two of those were to be removed and yet protected, only one. It's just almost reverse of what you would like to look, just looking as an overview. We're tending to protect the ones that are less healthy or have a grading of less value, as in D.
So I guess what the decision, I hate that we're sitting at this impasse. I understand what your position is, that it costs this much money to get here. That there's no guarantee that you can get the setbacks changed to accommodate, anything.
But you still have to do what you can.
I'm assuming the majority of the trees that are red X's on it's not the south, but it's the bottom of the diagram for the house, are all removed for varying reasons. Is it proximity to the house foundation?
Yes, sir. Proximity to the house, when they dig that foundation, it's been cut. A lot of major structural roots on them. Most of them, I think, within that, like 10-foot area of it, or I think one of them was like 11. But depending on, no one knows which way those roots are 100% going, we have a possibility of, I think, 2 to 3 of the major structural roots on it.
I don't know how this delays, how this affects anybody, other than the schedule you heard about for BZA isn't attractive, waiting till April. I'm almost clamoring for wanting to look at this again. Because when you're talking about 10 feet or plus or minus a foot here or there, please weigh in. There's flexibility here. This is the kind of thing we would like, for instance, if the 10-foot there is simply because that's what it says in the ordinance for new construction, there can be exceptions to that if somebody feels that, well, that probably isn't going to be as challenging as you think. You're putting a concrete foundation that's going to be impenetrable from further roots that come from the sprouts that have been cut, if they do. If you're to evaluate how much weakening of the tree it is and affect safety in the property. I don't know, there's a lot of factors here, and I'm sure you're aware of them all. But you're there to build a house successfully.
Got to figure out if kids are moving in state, have to be somewhere where they can start school.
Yep.
And wherever they are, if this is gonna be ready in time. Has to. If I have to rent somewhere in states that same school.
What do you think about a reevaluation, Danny, of the trees, particularly that?
I would love to help move this forward, if we can. But I'm trying to figure out how. It's just the last time on site was just so hard to visualize anything. So if we were, I'm perfectly happy to go back out and meet again personally. And if we do, I was trying to think of ways that would, methods that would help us to understand better. One would be to, if you've got the four corners of the house marked, if you could just
Make them
either,
bigger and
either
taller
with
so we
building,
can see 'em.
either with building line or with paint, or actually some taller posts, so you could stand there and say, okay, well, the house is here and these trees are here. Anything that would help like that visually would be good. Different colored markings on the trees for
Yeah.
removal and retention. And it would be super if Donnie Skinner or someone from Natural Directions could be there also to help us. And then any of the other people who have a stake in who you're working with, who might help to make a decision. If we say, well, you can't move that tree, and then they say, well, then we've got to do this. Or if you have that information. So to back up and streamline, if we had a better visualization of where the house and the garage and the entry road and driveways are going to be, and demarcation of which trees are to be saved and which should be removed. And at least someone from the arborist company to explain their thinking.
I agree.
We've done this before. I don't know. Here we have, this doesn't have to be a special meeting. We can have another visit to the property, Becca? Or is there a formality we need to go through for that, like we did for the pine trees?
I mean, it would either have to be a special meeting or this point, I don't know, when's the next meeting? Yeah, I mean,
Well, he's got a lot to do too, prior to us getting involved on that level.
I mean, really, like I said, the house already stayed. I can run some pink string or
Right.
something on it. That takes 20 minutes. I can redo orange stake flagging, which I have in my truck. I mean, I could have it ready to go in an hour. It's just a matter of when Donnie can get out there, when y'all, I guess my question is, that fall back to the April meeting. Is that gonna be enough time to get to the zoning meeting? You need to apply to that. So then, but I don't know what exactly I'm applying for at that point.
I think the idea is that you would go to the property owners and discuss what's been discussed here. And I think if significant effort could be made to try and move things around or change where you can, or come up with a plan, you know, because you're gonna have to request, you're gonna have a specific request for BZA. So yeah, that's gonna be on what the applicant really wants to do, but unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like the trees were taken into consideration with the selection of the house plan. So I mean, that's on the homeowner to come up with, you know, work with their designers and with you to come up with a plan either for a request to BZA, or if you don't go that route, you still have to come back.
March 17th. Submittal deadline.
Is there not any, I don't know, any room for compromise? I realize these things are sort of set in stone in a way, but any room for compromise on some of the confirmation of this house plan that could accommodate the trees a little bit? The one silly example, maybe a small one in the back corner was say that pine tree, which you explained why that wouldn't work. The porch being moved somewhere because of the master bedroom association and the family room and that, I get it. But the other side of the house is where it would, you know, it would appear that most of the damage is being done on the bottom side here, because of proximity to the house. You know, if shifting the whole thing upward, which would then compromise some of the trees that are already there and categorically remove any possibility to save that big pine tree in the corner, would save a whole lot more in the front part, or the bottom part, the closest to the Green Lane. And so is there any conceivable way that could be done? And would that even challenge a setback in going in that direction?
Where the porch is basically right on the back corner of the setback.
Yep.
Right there.
That's the dotted line. Right? Is that right?
It looks like it, yeah.
Okay, okay. Well. Been thinking about this a long time and not getting anywhere. Do you see that as a relevant varying request that you would make? Or are there other things that come out of that I can't see as a builder, that not being a builder, that would complicate the heck out of life?
I mean, change a lot of the, I mean, it's basically would be a redraw of the house plan. Shift the whole lot, so. I guess that's something that the homeowners have to take into.
Right,
And I mean, I know that she was stating that unfortunately, a lot of trees are getting saved. Trying to save aren't in that shape, but it's just kind of hard to.
well, that was the luck of the draw. I
Yeah,
mean,
it just kind of, that was just what they were, and I know it gives that perception of that was just how they were.
no, that's just the way the cookie crumbled, unfortunately, with this size house plan, which is what we probably really have the most difficulty with. That's not your decision. You're to build it. But that's the core of the difficulty here is that,
And I guess one question I know is gonna come is if the house fits the requirements with the impervious and all that, when I have the meeting with the homeowners and they keep bringing up the size of the house and the fit and feel of Somerville, they're gonna question if it fits and does that, what does that have to do with it, is basically saying this doesn't feel like it should fit in that area, is one of the questions that they're gonna ask. Is kind of what the question I'm getting, what I'm getting from this is, it's a big house plan, but if it makes it fit and we can figure out something, but it's the feedback we keep getting is it's just an overwhelming house for this area, is something I guess they're gonna question of what they mean by that.
Because it's impacting the trees.
how many square
If-
feet is the house?
The house is 4,000 and then you have the 3-car garage, so it's.
Considerable.
Yeah.
Now, this shed over there, that's to house a motorhome, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it's a workshop and it's basically a giant workshop and put a motor home in. But he's got a small workshop off that he needs to, he can pull the RV out and use the bigger part for a bigger workshop that he needs to.
Is there a possibility that the motorhome could be relocated, somewhere else completely, so that way the structure of the home could be shifted then?
You talking about
Could be done
offsite somewhere or?
Yes,
Yeah.
on-site.
What'd you say about here then? Yeah.
But I mean, they're shifting the house that way, that's gonna impact more of the one big tree. That 36-inch or whatever it is. Going that way with it, and that was why that one was stuck off in the corner, it impacted the least amount of stuff. That way.
Less than 5 feet. Yeah, but you could. shift
Again,
it
just trying to think of
Southwest.
different options, possibilities to consider, think about.
I guess you really won't know anything until you get the setbacks, if they're adjusted or not, see what you can actually do. If you don't get the setbacks you're looking for, it's really gonna be a difficult situation.
Well, I'd like to move that we at least start soon with a revisit with the flagging, the monumentation of the house and the marking as was described by Danny of the trees. And we need to do that soon.
Can we pick a date while we're sitting
We'll
here?
have to do that right now.
That's fine. I'm all for it.
And I would ask that we mark the trees to stay because it's less of them than the ones to remove.
With the colors that you mentioned that you had.
Well, it's
Kate.
19 and 17, right?
15 and 17. And see with the setback, looking on the front of the house, I mean, based on the scale down there at the bottom, it just interpolate, you probably couldn't move the house less than 5 feet towards the front. And then that's gonna still put you within probably 10 feet of that 18-inch pine tree in the back. So that's not gonna really save
No,
it.
I realize that part. I would willingly sacrifice that tree if I thought that all that row of trees that are being removed on the bottom, if that's the south side, where's the, you know where I'm talking about, whether it's like 10 of them in a
and-
row.
and like I said, most of those on the bottom are within 10 feet. There's one that's maybe 20 feet out there, that 20-inch
I
pine.
realize that. So, yeah, I will gladly sacrifice one tree for 7 or 8. But let's look at them again. Does that sound reasonable? You hear what you hear what we're thinking, and this is why we're here, and so. The date, everybody got calendars they can look at?
Can't do Thursday.
And no idea when Mr. Skinner could meet with us.
I have to call and see.
Mhm.
I'll see what he comes back and says. I'm
Then what would it take to schedule a second meeting to vote on prior to the next meeting? Could we do that? No?
We'd have to look at,
Friday's not real good if you look at the weather.
no, I mean, it has to be a public hearing.
No, like we did, I mean, broadcast. Like we did for Pine Trace.
Yeah, no, the site meeting is, are you talking about?
The site meeting and then. The site meeting
Then
would,
another meeting here.
we would have to vote on what we, if we can. Which is what this is. So it would have to be. April, what is our next meeting? So that.
But then we just had a special meeting for something here a while
Yeah,
back.
Pine Trace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we did too, because we voted, didn't we?
Mhm.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
But I think you made it a public hearing in short notice. Isn't
Yeah, I
that
think we
right,
did.
Tim, when we had Pine Trace? We voted in place.
That was, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought he had more posting requirements that he had to do. Similar to like PCA or BNR, but I think if y'all could agree on a date, as long as, the agenda was posted 24 hours before the meeting, we'll have to double check that. It would depend on y'all's schedules, obviously.
Well, limiting factor is Mr. Skinner or what?
He can meet next week, Monday or Tuesday after 10 o'clock.
I can't meet Monday. Open on Tuesday.
Would you say yes?
Neither
No.
one. Now work Monday.
Yeah, I've got an appointment Monday, but I can meet Tuesday.
Can you meet Tuesday,
I
David?
can do Tuesday.
That's Tuesday, the 13th, 14th, excuse me.
But
What time did Donnie say he could be there?
After 10.
After 10:30?
Okay, Yes.
What day is that?
That's Tuesday next week,
Tuesday the 14th.
14th. How's that gonna work for you?
Get some, I've got physical therapy at 1. We can be done by then.
Okay. And I'll move that we defer decision on the trees until we get to be able to re-examine them on Tuesday, the 14th of March.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one last item on the agenda. Marisco Drive, for whom, which nobody is here. Did you speak with the? Okay. So, so I guess we postpone it till next month. I think if he chooses to respond, because we have really nothing to go on. We have a piece of property with a bunch of trees on it that they want to cut most of them down. They have they have good drawings that show the trees are going to save. We'd really like to see the trees they're going to save with respect to the building plan.
should be in there. I know it's in there.
I know on the ground,
He's saying that back.
we can't see, I mean, it's a tall hair thicket. I mean, are we supposed to just do it? I know that's half the time what ends up happening. But we went all the way out there and not expecting anybody to be there as late as the day as it was, but it's nice to be able to go out on the site with somebody and just get a little bit of a feel for it. Unless, do you have good comfort in their design?
Truthfully, yes, they actually so. This was an oversight on our part, the fact that it's here at this point in time. This should have gone to you guys much earlier. Essentially, all of the permits are getting ready to be issued. Stormwater and building. We realized that it did not go to the board when we were looking at the stormwater construction permit and realized that it had never received pre-technical board approval. So it's partially on us. The other thing that I was looking at is the fact that they have actually met a higher standard for the amount of trees. When you look at their mitigation calculation, they were looking at for the internal portion of the lot. They were looking at the suburban residential development, which has a $160 per acre requirement. And this is actually zoned UCMX, which is urban corridor mixed use, which falls under the urban mixed use classification for mitigation. And that would only require 60 inches per acre for the interior, or 10 trees per acre. So based on what they provided, they have when you take into account the larger borders that they've provided, they have over 1,694 inches of diameter address height for the overall site.
The larger borders.
Yeah, so they would need technically to provide 442 inches at that higher standard. It would be much less than that. It would be 60, so they only require to provide.
Oh, I appreciate that, but where are these larger borders? Because I don't know what they were on the,
On the north side of the site, adjacent to the existing Limehouse villas. They came out in
okay, I see.
quite heavily in opposition to all the developments.
I know that.
Property,
I know that.
Parker's, the Wash Wizard, as well as this one. So they have kind of gone out of their way to provide additional landscaping, and when you look at the landscape plan that will supplement the trees that do remain, it is a good landscape plan, in my opinion, for a site like this.
And that's included in here, the landscape plan somewhere?
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
Yes. What I gave Nick. Had it, it should be one of the last pages. You know, when you start looking at what they're adding, what they tried to say, they are far in excess of, they're probably 8 times higher than what they need based on total DBH per acre.
Okay.
All right, well, based on what you're saying, again, I probably didn't prepare myself as well as this as I could have, but based on what you say, and we've discussed this before many times, I have faith in that, particularly with those numbers you gave me. So I'm going to move that we approve the tree removal plan and just be sure that I'm sure it sounds like they will anyhow, will exercise the right tree protection.
That does get verified at their pre-construction point. So when they're ready, they will put up their tree protection. Nick, they'll go out to the site, verify that tree protection meets the minimum standards that are set in our ordinance and that they are showing within their submitted set of plans. It's all up and in place, then they can start their, we issue that stormwater construction permit. And they start clearing, grading, and installing, utilities, etc.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your help, Tim.
Yep.
It makes a difference. Is there any more discussion, business, other issues to discuss today?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
We are adjourned.